Welcome everyone. It is Tom, Coach Tom to be specific, or Trainer Tom if you like, with the Success Culture podcast. And I'm here with my good buddy and another success coach and trainer, Hunter Kowalski. How you doing, Hunter?
Good. How you doing?
I'm pretty tired today, so I might be a little goofy, a little silly along the way here. But I'm really excited for the topic today, which I feel like I say a lot, but this is one of those topics within the health and fitness space that just persists, and it is nutrition myths. I mean, there's a lot of myths in general when it comes to the topic of health and fitness, but I feel like for whatever reason, nutrition myths tend to be like there's the most quantity of them, and they just persist year by year, decade by decade. Hunter, why do you think that might be?
I think it's with nutrition. It really is a difficult area of fitness. You know, especially if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to eat to build muscle mass, whatever the case may be. It truly is difficult, and adherence and all that kind of other stuff it's probably one of the hardest things to adhere to long term. So I think everyone out there, they're just looking for what is the next best thing, and they're looking for, you know, the special diet or the special pill or the special supplement or whatever, eating regimen, whatever it is. Yeah. And that's why there's so many myths. And then, you know, nutrition coaching, health coaching, it's a really it's a lucrative business, and people take advantage of a lot of individuals, and they're like, oh, if you do my specific specialty diet and you take all my supplements and all this kind of stuff, you know, you will see results. And there's a lot of people that sell it like that, but you know, at the end of the day, there's no like walk around for actually being adherent to a proper plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
no, I really tend to think that the business of it all is one of the things that really keeps these myths persisting, kind of like you touched on. I really do think that's one of the biggest things, because, and again, that same idea can be applied to the stuff you do in the gym, the exercises and everything, and the approach there. But I just feel like nutrition, there's something about it, and we're going to dig deep into a large variety of these myths we're referring to. And we're also going to, you have to wait to the end for this, but we're going to tell you what is in fact the best diet. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, but buddy, let us begin. I'm going to kind of just rattle these off for Hunter, and we're going to discuss from there. Because, for those who don't know, Hunter is our nutrition guy. You know, we all do a little nutrition stuff, but Hunter is our main dude. So very grateful for him in that regard. So that's why I'm directing the questions towards him, and I'm very happy he's here for this specific episode. First question. Keto. Is that the only way you can get lean? The ketogenic diet?
No, and it's probably not a great way long term. It's a great diet for its intended purpose, which is helping people with like epilepsy or other issues like that. Amazing. But as a general diet for, I guess, everyone, especially people that lift weights or want to have good muscle tone and things like that, I think having some carbohydrate in play is going to really be beneficial. And
back it up actually, though, because people might not know. What is the ketogenic diet?
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people that tout, well, keto's the best. They're actually not on keto, because with keto, you can't even have very much protein at all, because protein will kick you out of the keto state, if you will. Yeah. And you have to have a diet that's like around 80% fat. So you're literally just like eating fat like all day long. And I, you know, personally as a health coach for myself as well, I think the benefits that you're missing out on, because you have to be limited on the amount of vegetables that you consume, and you have to be limited on the amount of fruits that you consume when you're on a ketogenic diet. I think you are missing out on a lot of health aspects. And then another area is a lot of keto advocates. You know, they're doing these keto bars. They're doing high-fat meats, bacon, butter. What is that? Bulletproof coffee, all this kind of different stuff. I used to drink those, the packaged ones. Yeah, it's fine, but it's just like, hey, you know, it's probably not amazing to consume that much saturated fat. So I think keto can be decent. I mean, you'll get a lot of weight loss initially, but it's mainly because you're losing muscle glycogen, if you would, and just like your liver's going to run out of glycogen. You're gonna drop a lot of water weight. So I actually, I do recommend like very low carb periods for a short period of time, sometimes to kickstart somebody's metabolism when we're trying to get them to diet. And I've done days here and there where I'll do almost like a more keto based but higher protein diet when I'm getting ready for bodybuilding shows and things like that. But generally, I think carbohydrates have a place, and I always say carbohydrates are kind of like the fuel that helps to burn body fat.
Sure, yeah.
If that makes sense.
I follow.
So I do think that carbohydrates are very beneficial, especially for physique athletes or anybody that wants to lift weights.
Yeah,
so.
For performance, it really is key. And then, just piggybacking off that, we kind of already covered this, but the next point is carbs make you fat. So this feeds very much into, what keto is trying to combat, which is, hey, let's get rid of the carbs, and that's going to be kind of part of the magic as to why this diet works.
Yeah.
So,
but it's not true necessarily. I mean,
no, not at all.
The insulin and glycogen and glucose, blood sugars, all that kind of stuff that people talk about a lot with keto. I mean, it is true. If you have bad insulin levels, if you can't get those taken care of, it's going to be hard to lose weight. But there's a lot of other methods to kind of get that taken care of. It's more of an advanced topic. But if you do look at fat, it can directly be transferred to body fat. Every other macronutrient, protein, and carbohydrates, it's a much more energetic process for us to actually turn that into body fat. So I don't know. I think a lot of keto individuals, they do it well because it's kind of hard to be like super hungry. You don't have blood sugar dips and things like that. So the appetite suppressant factor of it is nice. But yeah, overall, it works for some people. I won't tout that it's not great for anybody. Some people it'll look good for, but overall, I think you're going to be better off consuming more of a mixed macro-based diet and definitely higher protein too. I think if you are truly doing keto, taking your protein, super, super low, because at that point you do have to be under 20% protein for your diet. Otherwise, through gluconeogenesis, it's basically taking that protein and turning it into carbohydrates. It'll actually kick you out of ketosis.
Yeah.
So you can't have very high protein. So
right, yeah. Which again, that's a huge misconception with keto, I find, with people who don't know better. But yeah, on the carbs note, I think the main thing is, carbs certain carbs, because like we're kind of blanketing carbs here. The funny thing is, technically fiber is a carb. Yep. Am I right? Yep. So that's something that, it's certainly not going to contribute to weight gain or any sort of negative weight gain. But like carbs, again, blanketing it a bit, certain carbs might just kind of make your appetite more, a little bit greater. And that's, I think, where things get misconstrued a little bit. Yep. But at the end of the day, it's a calories equation as to whether or not you're going to lose weight for the most part. And, going into the next one, similar vein of conversation, eating fat makes you fat. And I would have a lot to say about this too, kind of on that same note. It's a calorie equation. Yes. So yes, fat has the most calories per gram. We have protein with 4 per gram, carbs as well, 4 per gram. There's a little more consideration there, but more or less just take that 4 calories per gram, 4 calories per gram. Fat being 9 calories per gram, so double the calories per gram. But even still, there's nothing inherent about fat that would make you fat, wouldn't you say?
No, it's all about how much calories you kind of eat, and that's I think all that we need to touch on. It's that's a myth for sure. Fat is not inherently going to make you fat. I believe it was the Atkins diet that was lower fat.
Atkins was just I believe high protein, low carb, and I believe fat was pretty moderate.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm just blanking on that. I know there's some diets where like fat was super, super low. And,
there's so many. Yeah.
You run into a lot of health issues with bringing your fat too low.
Perhaps certain vegan diets, which we'll touch on later. I would imagine that's something that's not uncommon.
But that's false. I think that's all we need to touch on for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So then kind of going back to carbs again, this is a very interesting one. It's kind of like, if anyone's seen the movie Gremlins, it's like you can't feed them after midnight or else they go a little crazier. So you cannot eat carbs after 7 p.m. And this is something that I've heard when I was younger. And, it might not be 7 p.m. specifically. It might just be like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. or like before bed. I've even heard just don't eat carbs. What's your take, Hunter?
Just don't eat carbs at all, ever.
Ever.
No, that's a mess. At the end of the day, it's going to be calorie equated. Yes, carbohydrates increase insulin and blood sugars and things like that. So the idea is, hey, you're going to be going into a state where you don't need a lot of carbohydrates, and those carbohydrates are going to be turned into body fat because you're not burning them.
Yeah.
But, you know, our bodies are not really running like that acutely. I guess you could say you're on like that short of a time period.
Yes.
So the carbohydrates that you ate, you know, before bed last night are going to help to perform your training session the following day, or if you're, you know, doing cardio, or if you just, I don't know, maybe you have an active job or something like that. And then another thing is, the biggest factor that I see, and the biggest thing that I see affecting people's ability to either lose weight, build muscle mass, or what else, is proper sleep. You know, getting not only enough sleep per night, you know, so enough time in bed, but also a quality of sleep. And, you know, if you're dieting down, it is hard to sometimes sleep if you don't have carbohydrates at night. And carbohydrates, if you get that little like kick of blood glucose, kind of like puts you to sleep a little bit. You know, if you eat carbohydrates and you just kind of rest around, it really does helps you sleep, in my opinion. So I think it's great. Me, myself, clients, you know, we eat carbohydrates before bed. I actually, a lot of times with competitors, I tell them, hey, let's save some carbohydrates so that you can have more before bed. And people get lean on that. Like, it does not affect weight loss. Calorie equated, right?
Oh, absolutely. I will say, just kind of on all these macronutrients considerations in general, carbs, fats, whatever. Speaking more specifically on carbs, because I know that's the one that tends to get the most demonized, I would say, probably, amongst the three. But I was eating, when I was at my absolute leanest ever, I was eating more carbs than I'd ever eaten before. Yeah. So that's a test. That doesn't mean that I'm an alien or something. That just is to say, again, this is common theme we'll come back to is really, it's a calories equation. It doesn't matter if you get your carbs at 7 p.m. or whatever. It's like, what's your total calories for the day? And that's the main thing to consider as far as whether or not you're going to lose weight as far as your nutrition is concerned.
Yep.
So, same vein of conversation, is there anything special about intermittent fasting as far as losing weight goes?
Not necessarily. I think increased lipolysis from being in a state of not eating may have some benefit to increase fat loss, especially if you're introducing like some fat loss agents like L-carnitine, euhimbine, stuff like that, potentially. But I think generally, if you're looking at it, again, it's calorie equated.
Yes, sir. That's what I was going to say. Like, you can kind of just squash it right there.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, a lot of diets are, to be honest, that's one problem with diets, and that's why the U.S. has a dieting issue, if you would. Like, a lot of people can lose weight, but they can't keep it off. But intermittent fasting, in my opinion, for a lot of individuals, is not something that they can sustain long term. Mm-hmm. And I also kind of see it... I know it's a little bit of it's also kind of a myth that you have to eat like 6 small meals a day or something like that. But I do see individuals that are only eating like once or twice. You know, one, they're not getting proper micronutrients in, because if you look at like how much fruits and vegetables you should really be having on a daily basis, it's hard to do that in 2 meals. You know what I mean? It can be. And still trying to get enough protein, all that kind of stuff. But the thing about that is it could be tricky for a sustainability, you know, like if you're like, well, hey, now I want to have breakfast with my kids, right? I'm done with my diet. Well, there's one extra meal that you start eating, as opposed to like, hey, now I'm just eating a little bit higher calorie foods. Now you're literally eating another meal. So, you know, that could be an additional 1,000 calories in that one meal pretty easily. So, I don't know. It works for some people. I hardly ever recommend it. What I do recommend, if you're looking at like, I guess you could say like, well, how am I going to live the longest? You know, it might be a good idea to fast for an average of like 12 to 14 hours on a daily basis, which is not necessarily intermittent fasting, but it is like, hey, you know, if I have my last meal around like 7, I'm not going to, you know, wake up at like 3 a.m. and eat again in the morning. You know what I mean? There might be some benefit to that with the lipolysis, apoptosis, and things like that. That could be a whole podcast in of itself.
I bet.
I don't necessarily recommend like, you know, like I think like a 16-hour fast or whatever it is. It's kind of more popular, but I still recommend people eat between 3 and 4 meals per day. But, you know, if you can get a little bit of a fast in overnight, it's probably a decent idea as well. So
sure, yeah. But yeah, and again, like, just point blank, what you're saying too is like it can work, but only in the sense of like if it can help somebody manage their calories. There's no magic to pushing your food out really otherwise as far as weight loss is concerned. Health in general is maybe a different consideration. Like what you're saying is like maybe getting
too.
like that's a little different. But yeah, as far as the magic behind if you implement intermittent fasting, you will lose weight. It's like, well, again, if your calories are in order.
Yeah.
And I will say, as someone who did an intermittent fasting protocol for, I believe it was 3 years, and let me tell you, I was pretty weird about it. Like I was like no exceptions kind of person. Like it had to be a minimum of 16 hours, and I would try and push it further sometimes. And I would usually eat 1 to 2 meals in that span. And early on, I would basically overcompensate by just like eating way more calories than I was even eating before I started intermittent fasting within my window, and then nothing would really happen. But over time, I think I kind of leveled out a little bit more, and I thought, oh, maybe there is something to this intermittent fasting. But then, by the end of that 2-3 years, whatever it was, when I finally came out of it, I was like, I actually like eating regularly way better, and there's really no difference otherwise. It can be more convenient for some people. I will say that, because it's kind of nice. Hey, I woke up, I don't have to eat or prepare anything, and you can just go. And then you're not, dealing with multiple meals throughout your day. So convenience factor, maybe that's a consideration too. But yeah, again, I was really weird about my fasted, dude. Like when you say the, I want to go out to have like breakfast or whatever with friends, family, that sort of thing. I remember I was with my ex-girlfriend's family at like some brunch thing, and I didn't eat anything, and they were giving me so much crap, and I was like, I don't know, I'm doing the intermittent fasting thing, and I want every day to be the same in that regard. Yeah. Like I would get worried that I would have like a spider crawl in my mouth when I'm sleeping, and I would eat it and it would break my fast. Like that's how weird I was. Like it was a thing. But that's enough about intermittent fasting. Let's move on to a little bit different vein of conversation. Still like on like a specific diet, I guess you could say, but it's less about weight loss specifically. But can you get all of your protein from vegan sources, Hunter?
You can.
Yes.
You can. It's tricky.
It is tricky.
You have to really be committed. If muscle building or just building, maintaining muscle, which if you want to live a long, healthy life, in my opinion, you should have a lot of muscle mass, especially in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Try to build that base so that you have longevity as you age. You want muscle mass, right? So to consume enough protein from vegan sources, one, you really should be mixing your protein sources. So like I highly recommend that people that are vegan, if you're vegan for ethical issues, like you don't like eating meat, you don't want to save the animals, right? Awesome, do that, but just make sure that you're like accepting the fact that doesn't mean that you can just, I'm just going to eat lettuce, for lunch because that's all that's available. No. You have to actually really make sure that you're being consistent with your protein feedings. So still trying to get in, 4 to 6 protein feedings per day. I highly recommend a vegan protein powder. That's going to be a mixed, it's going to be a blend of multiple proteins in there from multiple vegan sources, because a lot of times the amino acids will be missing or lacking. Certain amino acids will be lacking, and certain, proteins, like if you just do beans, for example, if you just do rice, so on and so forth. So but totally, you can get it in. I think it'll be hard, but you can do it. Yeah. And if you have like bodybuilding or physique sport endeavors, again, it's just going to be a little bit more tricky. It's going to be a little bit more like thought to it. It's going to be maybe tricky to do diets because, well, man, my calories got to get low, but I still need to get protein in. And there's like very little outside of protein powder. That's a vegan protein powder. That's strictly protein. That is vegan. Yep. So, yes, but yeah, generally, I think that's true. Yeah.
And that's the thing. You cannot do especially a diet like a vegan diet willy-nilly. You have to, there's like, you can definitely make it work, but you cannot go into it without having all the information, because like B vitamins is another consideration, big consideration. So even outside of the protein, those are the main things though. It would be the protein probably, and then the B vitamins. So alrighty, next up, you must, and I do mean must, count calories to lose weight. Must.
Not necessarily, but
it helps, but it's not like you have to.
It's the best way. I'll say that for sure. 1000%. Counting your macros, your calories, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
To have that reference and actually have the data in that way. Yeah,
it's the most surefire way to have the ability to just change your body in whatever direction you want to change it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's a lot of methods that you can take, to start cleaning things up, like removing sodas or removing high calorie drinks. Stop going to Starbucks and getting 1,000 calorie blended, drinks.
Woo!
Just do stuff like that.
Insane.
And that might be all that it takes for you to lose weight, or even just like preparing your meals around like, hey, okay, I'm going to really try to focus on a protein. So like, let's grab some chicken breast, right? And then next up, focus on some veggies. And then you can throw in some carbohydrates and some fats here and there, as opposed to, what are we going to have for dinner? And you get like, pizza every night or something like that. I do believe, it depends on the person, but I think calorie counting allows people more freedom with dieting. Otherwise, general healthy eating can be almost a little bit harder.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I love it if individuals can get there and maybe even just eyeball things or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's a true statement to say you do have to equate your calories if you want to lose weight. Because no matter what you do, like, you could eat the healthiest food on the planet, but if you eat too much of it, you're still going to gain weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like nuts are a good example of that. Amazingly healthy food, but easy to overeat.
Super easy. Super easy. No, generally I agree with everything you said. It's not like literally the fact that you're counting the calories is what's making you lose the weight, but it's just the knowledge of being consistent with whatever calorie goal you should have that would help you either lose, gain, maintain, whatever the case may be, your weight. Like, I will say, like, what I did is I developed a base. And I'm not necessarily recommending this for everybody. Some people can do it, and I've been very successful with it, but I developed an understanding for what it is to count calories and just understand like what foods I typically eat have this, that, and whatever. And doing that long enough, I was able to eventually just kind of ballpark what I'm eating and like how much I'm eating, and then I can more or less manipulate my weight pretty well that way. But again, not everybody is going to do that well with that method. They might have to be a little more strict about the actual tracking. Alrighty then. Hunter, do I need to eat 6 meals a day to gain muscle?
No, but it's probably a smart idea. I would say generally, if you're like, okay, I want to eat 3 meals and I want to maximize my muscle building potential, I'm going to be like, well, I don't know. Do you really want to maximize it? Because you're probably going to be better off getting 4 to 5 meals in. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think if you're looking at the muscle protein synthesis or mTOR response that you get per meal, you'd be much better off spacing that response out over at least 4 meals. That seems to be what is pretty conducive to research as well, between 4 and 6 meals. Yeah. It's tricky sometimes if you're eating, let's say, like 10 meals a day to get enough protein to reach what's called the leucine threshold, essentially. So if you're eating 10 meals a day and maybe you're a smaller female that has, like a protein goal of like 150 or something like that, it's just going to be like, okay, well, I'm eating like 15 grams of protein per meal or something like, it's just not enough. So between 4 and 6, I've actually, in the last year or two, changed my stance on this a little bit. I do believe that people get probably better benefits from eating between 5 and 6 meals per day as opposed to 3 and 4, which I would have been a bigger believer of 2 or 3 years ago. Especially if you're in a dieting state. Sometimes it's like, man, okay, I just got to get through the next 2.5, 3 hours. You know what I mean? And then you can eat again. And I think performance, how you feel, how you sleep, how you look, even to some extent, is benefited by eating spaced out protein, if you would. So between 5 and 6 meals, I really do. Yeah.
But when we say meals, should we maybe specify? So let's say you have 3 actual meals, and then maybe you have 2 snacks. Yeah. And those snacks are protein heavy.
Yeah. You could say snack, but snack, you just want to make sure that that's not a handful of carrots.
Sure. Yeah. A snack is in a protein bar, a protein shake, or a pizza, or a couple eggs, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're kind of looking in my opinion, I think you should be looking at taking your protein, whatever the total is for the day. I think 1 gram per pound is a general good rule of thumb. Yeah. And whatever that is, you spread that across however many meals you're able to eat. So if it's 4, you just spread that amount and you try to have that many protein feedings. It doesn't matter if it's, mixed with other foods and things like that. Right. But you just try to have around that amount. Yeah. So, yep.
I like it. That's more or less my take as well. Now this one, You can't drink diet soda and lose weight. Is that a fact?
That's false.
Yeah, that's
I would
false.
Say. Yeah, now generally outside of health benefits or risk, I guess you could say, let's not even maybe bring that up, but you can drink as much diet soda as you want and you can still lose weight. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no calories, so
yeah,
no calories. How are you going to make fat out of that? That doesn't even make. There's no sense to it. Some people might claim, and I don't want to go on a rabbit hole, but they'll say that drinking the diet beverages make them more hungry. I've heard that, but I've experienced the opposite personally, where it can help me curb my appetite.
Studies show the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's where it's like, that one was always weird to me. I'm like, nah.
I will say, like, long-term health effects are questionable, to be honest.
Okay.
On certain, like, diet sodas, typically what they're using, you know, I would prefer something like a stevia-based sweetener overall. But yes, as far as, like, can you still lose weight? Totally.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. You know, look at if you look at the realm of like natural bodybuilding or even enhanced bodybuilding, you know, there's so many diet foods that are loaded with the same artificial sweeteners that are in diet pops, and people get shredded in that realm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're eating that stuff all day long and they're still getting super lean. So
that's actually very, I think, worth mentioning as a part of like what makes us credible here, you and I, is we've both competed in natural bodybuilding. So I personally don't think anybody's gonna know better than a competitive bodybuilder as to how to lose fat. Am I right?
True.
Because they have to lose it more than just about anybody. Yeah. So they're gonna know. So again, this is coming from our experience as well as what we've learned through research and etc. What we've been taught. All right. Next up, you need to eat small, frequent meals to boost your metabolism.
False, but take that with a grain of salt and go back to our discussion on protein feedings. But generally false. You can still lose weight eating one time a day if it's calorie equated to you know, be below your, I guess, threshold. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a big one. That was one of the first myths I think I'd heard actually. Is you need to keep the metabolism up by doing this specific approach.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Like my first contest prep when I was like 15, I started dieting when I was like 15 for it. I was like religious to the 6 meals. Like
me too. I would get terrified if I didn't. I was as far as getting 6 meals to gain muscle as well as to get my metabolism boosted by eating more frequent. I was like, it has to be that or my day is wasted. And it's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would even like, I never recommend this, but I would even like, you know, I don't know if I was out and about like all day and I got back at like 10 o'clock, I was like, shoot, I remember one time just in general, I was like, shoot, I have like 3 meals left. You know what I mean? So I had to have like a meal, and then I waited an hour and a half, had a meal, then I waited an hour and a half and had a meal, which was like way past, you know, I stayed up way later. It would have been much more beneficial to, one, maybe just eat a little bit less that day, or kind of just have like one bigger meal. Because I was like starving after each meal anyway, so it would have made sense to just eat all of that, and I would have felt probably great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a funny one. I mean, these are all kind of funny, but alrighty. We've kind of already answered this one, so we can be quick about it. Protein is only for bodybuilders? Question mark?
Big false.
Because,
again, if you want to have a long, healthy life, you know, you want to be able to squat up and down, play with your grandkids, your great-grandkids, all that kind of stuff, you need to have a base of muscle. And how you do that is consuming enough protein and getting in some resistance training.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if you want to, you know, do bodybuilding or you want to live a long time. You need to have some muscle mass, in my opinion.
Yeah, so, we need the protein to repair. It's a big part of that process. So
you need, and actually, you know, if you're like, hey, you know what, I used to do bodybuilding, I used to play sports, but now I'm old. I don't need as much protein anymore.
Oh, false. Ridiculous.
False, because you actually need more protein as you age.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
Right.
Like if there's any validity to, you know, having less muscle mass as you age, that idea, it's like, well, then why wouldn't you want to combat that with eating more protein, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So then next up, back to the fat. low fat or fat-free foods are healthier. And again, we more or less touched on this.
Typically false, yeah.
Typically false.
Outside of fruits and vegetables, which are typically like fat-free or near fat-free.
Well, sure, but it's like
generally, if you're looking at like a fat-free or very low-fat diet, not going to be ideal for health or hormone function.
Yeah.
So no.
Well, it's even to say like, let's say there's some really processed product where it advertises on there like low fat or fat free. Yeah. It's like that's not necessarily like a great thing in every case.
No. Yep.
You know, again, it can, for somebody who's dieting to lower body fat, it may be something that will help them because fat has the most calories per gram. But again, that's a sort of a different conversation there. There was one, we're kind of running out of time, but there was one that I really want to touch on that I'm now forgetting. What was it?
Processed food?
Processed food, thank you. Yes, this one is huge. But, so essentially, are processed foods inherently bad? What does that even mean?
Ooh, wow.
What a question.
I guess there's a lot of things that can fall under the realm of process.
Yeah, it's a spectrum. It's not just like this black and white, processed, unprocessed. Like plenty of foods you associate with being healthy are in fact processed foods, but then there's heavily processed foods and minimally processed foods. Yeah. Like would you even say, I think we talked about this earlier, but like meat you get at the grocery store, there's technically some sort of process to get that meat to the grocery store.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's always kind of funny when people are like, "Oh yeah, I don't eat any processed foods." I'm like, "Really?" So you cook all of your chickens whole, you cook your cows whole, like because you can't have them cut up. Like technically, like the butcher shop, they're processing it down so that it can be refrigerated. Like is refrigeration processing? So you have to like store it at room temperature or
even like a natural peanut butter. You literally cannot have peanut butter without a process. That's the whole idea. You take the peanuts. Yeah. Well, even that, like the peanuts initially are in a shell, but usually you get them in the grocery store without their shell on. And there's a process there. Typically roasted, typically salted. Is it bad for you that it's processed in this way? No, I would say not. Yeah. But then peanut butter takes it a step further. You have to blend it up and get it nice and buttery.
Yeah. So generally, that's a false statement. Now, even if you're looking at like one big example of a health food that a lot of people are familiar with, actually is flax seeds. We actually cannot break down the shell of a whole flax seed. So if you consume flax seeds whole, or like a lot of like crackers and cereals and things like that have like
little flax seeds.
They have the whole flax seeds, but really you're not gonna digest those at all.
Yeah.
So in order to get the health benefits, which there's a lot of good fatty acids and things like that from the flax seeds, it either has to be processed into kind of a like a powder, so you could blend it yourself, which is a form of processing, or you can buy it kind of blended into the powder. Yeah. That way you'll absorb it, or you can get an oil. Right?
Sure.
Because technically, like oil, I think oil is one of the healthiest things that you can consume, like olive oil, flaxseed oil, avocado oil.
But those are processed. Again,
yeah.
You can't. It doesn't just come that way, Yeah. So that's something I would love people to learn more about, because it's always talked about in these black and white terms.
Yeah.
It's similar vein, and this will be the last thing I say that's kind of not directly related to processed foods, but when people say, "Oh, I don't eat any sugar," but then they'll eat fruit, honey, maple syrup, and it's like literally all of those things are in large part sugar. Yeah. So, yeah, people just the semantics of it all get all weird, and then it makes the conversation harder to have, and it makes it harder for people to truly learn. So, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. Now, before we sign out, what is the best diet, Hunter?
Ooh. Well, so if you go to the link in the description, you can find the diet that we created, which is... No, I'm just kidding. So, No, so the best diet is ultimately the diet that you are able to adhere to.
Yes, sir.
And even like I'm pretty sure this is correct. I could be wrong, but the Greek word for diet is essentially, the meaning is way of life. And
is it really?
I believe so, yeah. So with that,
I did not know that.
The best diet for you is the one that you can stick to majority of the time, whatever that is for you. So for me, that is, like, I eat very, very healthy foods, right? Yeah. I guess you could say minimally processed in the sense of like a lot of the foods that I eat are similar. Like minimal ingredients, if you would say that. Like, so I don't eat like a lot of protein bars that have like 17 different ingredients, but I do eat a lot of protein powder that has like 5 or 6 ingredients, if that makes sense, right? And then generally what works for me is calorie tracking, macro tracking, because that way if you get invited out to a restaurant, breakfast, whatever that is, you can do that and you can still guesstimate, track it in that way, right?
Sure.
So that's the best diet for me. I have people that just prefer to kind of eat healthy. That's the best diet for them, right? They can see dietary changes. I think anybody that's trying to sell you onto like keto, Atkins, paleo, carnivore, whatever the case might be wary, right? There's probably not a best diet for everybody. Maybe there's a best diet for each individual. Like all of those diets that I just listed, there might be an individual in the gym right now where we're podcasting this where it's like, wow, this individual jumped on carnivore and they felt great and it worked great for them, but they can be an anomaly. And you know what I mean? If we try to like say that the only way you can lose weight is keto, for example, we're kind of like zealots in that sense where it's like, oh yeah, this is the only way, it works for everybody. And it's kind of not really even encompassing how complex and like amazing the body really is also. So there is no best diet, unfortunately.
Well, it's unfortunate and fortunate in a sense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for income. I mean, if you had like the best diet that no one else knew about and you sold that, you just become like an instant like billionaire.
But it's fortunate because it opens up a lot of avenues, and that can leave people feeling overwhelmed or confused, I guess. But for me, I think it's beautiful because again, all these myths that we listed here, I fell for a lot of them. They set me back, and for me, it was once I fully accepted that, hey, there's no one size fits all. The main consideration is just going to be that calories in, calories out. And that's going to be a result of how you're eating, of course, as well as how you're expending that energy through how you're moving, how you're exercising. So, there's no... And also, whatever you do, Hunter more or less stated this already, but just to reiterate, it should be something you're doing for the long term. Don't think, hey, I got a wedding coming up, I'm going to go on keto until that wedding to help me lose weight or whatever the heck. It's like, no. If you want to try keto, that's great. Maybe try it out, whatever. But you shouldn't have it be as a part of this goal to lose weight in the short term. It's like whatever you're doing, I highly suggest you find something that's actually going to allow you to stick to it for all your years, because we're all about normalizing health and fitness here. Normalizing it, not making it some fleeting thing. Alrighty?
Yep.
Anything you'd like to close out with, Hunter?
No, that's it.
That's it. We gave you guys a lot of information, and I hope you enjoyed listening. And look forward to future episodes because we got all the knowledge up in here, all the genuine information. Have a great day, everybody. Stay happy and healthy.
See you later.
Bye-bye.